Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and Out on this Monday. Kevin, Ben, and BJ Bennett is back here with us on the show. So glad to have you back here, BJ, to the show. We've got so much to get to on the program, from the trade deadline coming up to the NFL making news, college football coming back. But first off, BJ, glad to have you back on the show.
Glad to be back. Have missed you guys. Had to take some time away for some personal health issues, but I'm glad to be back. I know you guys have been doing a great job while I've been gone, but good to see you. Good to be here. I've missed being on the radio with you, and glad to be back. Thankful for the opportunity to be back, and I'm looking forward to this fall.
BJ is back in the crowd. What is it? We got the gang all back together.
But that meant that you were like paying for my dinner tonight, right? And like, wasn't that's what Kevin said when I came in this morning?
Yes, obviously
you haven't been to my new website, www.hellno.com.
So that's the new one.
Yeah, that's the new one I got. It's under maintenance right now. But no, it is good to have you back. Me and Kevin been holding down the fort, man. But hey, man, listen, isn't it fitting though? BJ, does what he needs to do health-wise. We happy to have you back, BJ. But BJ happened to come back on the start of the college football season getting kicked off. But what BJ don't know is, if you haven't had a chance to hear about them Atlanta Falcons offense, the Orlando letter better let us know. Pray for us all, because it's going to be a long year coming out of Florida.
It's tough. The camp reports are they're tough.
When the camp reports are, D-line stuffs the run. Drake London barely got open.
Yes, but when you are defending a middling offense, I don't know if that's something to be excited about, or it's like, well, at least they can shut down a team that struggled to run the football and a team that struggled to protect the quarterback. Outside of that, they were amazing on offense last year. So we'll get to that. We'll get to that, I'm sure, in the coming days. But so much to get to. Full show. Chris Gordy going to join us, Locked on the SEC podcast, with camps opening up. Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Sports Network, going to join us on the program as the Eagles getting ready to start practice back. And Fred Owens will join us. Tomahawk Take. Braves have made a move today before the trade deadline. Yuri Adrianza back in the fold. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. But obviously, guys, the news of the day around the National Football League is really the news of the sports world today, and that's Deshaun Watson. He gets 6 games. And there's a lot of people who have a lot of things about that. I will say, for folks listening across the radio network here in the state of Georgia, you're listening online, ESPNCoastal.com, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Did I get all the plugs in there? Calvin Ridley got a year. Well, excuse me. Calvin Ridley got at least a year.
Right, yeah.
Because it was an indefinite suspension of at least a year. It could be more. Because, Ben, he bet on the Falcons in a game in which he was not playing, had no effect on, and happened to, make an account that said, Calvin Ridley, Atlanta Falcons wide receiver, I am actually betting on this site. But so he gets a year.
Yeah.
You have several guys, and again, not taking anybody's thoughts into account on, marijuana or whatever, but you've had several guys who have been suspended for a year plus for that. You've had guys get PEDs, which is, you're hurting yourself, I guess. A short-term game, long-term effects of using steroids. You get 4 or 5 games. Who was it? Darren Waller got 8 games for substance violation, right?
Darren Waller got a year.
Darren Waller got a year then.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Now, I will say, in a court of law, he was not declared guilty. You settled with 20 women. All right. Again, that doesn't mean you did it, but the optics are what the optics are when you settle with 20 people. You get 6 games. And again, maybe the league comes out and said, hey, we wanted a year. Of course, the players' union is going to say we want nothing. He hasn't been convicted in a court of law of being guilty of anything. And the arbitrator, the third-party judge in this situation, says 6 games. Now, I understand Ben Roger Goodell can come in behind that and add more to it. But this is obviously going to cause a lot of people problems. Say, look, what is your punishment policy? I know you kind of sourced it out to a third party here, but I mean, you got guys who are doing steroids getting 4 games, A guy made a bet, which is, again, something all professional leagues frown upon. Pretty much known. In the NFL, don't bet on the NFL. But got at least a year. Deshaun Watson settled with 20. And I know a lot of people said, okay, if you settled with one person, okay, you could probably come into question of maybe there was something going on. They just didn't want it to go to court. There's just 20 people. You put a clause in this thing that said he can only get massages from the team masseuse. That's just to me, Ben, it's a bad look. A bad look if you're the NFL, that you're so inconsistent, seemingly, with how you punish guys.
It is a bad look. It's a really bad look on a lot of different fronts. One, Deshaun Watson needs to know that when you make bad decisions, there should be consequences. A lot of people saying, "Oh, well, he settled with 20 women." Yeah, he settled with 20 women from the money that he got from the Houston Texans because for those who think he's already been suspended, no, he sat out 2021. He wasn't suspended because he still got paid. Number two is this: Judge Sue Robinson. That's who they did, the third party. The NFL wants to do a third party to make it look like they're trying to do things on the up and up. No, they did a third party so that because the NFLPA doesn't think Deshaun Watson should have gotten anything. The NFL, whatever that means, wanted him to get a year. So you got two different entities. Roger Goodell has 3 days, to decide his ruling. Deshaun Watson won the face of the National Football League. Deshaun Watson, in a sat-out year, got a $230 million contract extension with the Cleveland Browns. Now, Deshaun Watson, he settled with 20 women. They said between, and this is not a crime, but between, I think, an 18-month span, he had like around 70 massages from 70 different massage parlors. What has happened in this situation is this, and I'm going to say this, and I don't care how people feel. It is the truth. The NFL has a problem when it comes to the treatment of women. They have a problem, and they don't care because anytime you got certain, listen, Ray Rice and those that want to say Ray Rice, we saw it. They can't deny something we see. Ray Rice never to be seen from or heard from again. With the situation with Deshaun Watson, it is, Kevin and BJ, when you are one of the face of the NFL, you don't think they're going to protect you? Oh, they are. You get people in the seats. I'm not going to mention what Ben Roethlisberger did, because it's just egregious to even say. He got 6 games. Right? Most people don't even, he got 6 right back. The situation when it comes to women and sexual misconduct or domestic violence, you're going to have to come with something definitive, or it's always going to be like this. It's always going to be, somebody was like, well, dude, how many women? I said, dude, we don't know. We just know that at this point, Deshaun Watson, in 2022, his salary is $1 million. So whatever that is for 6 games, that's what he's going to pay. His $230 doesn't kick in until 2023. So if you don't think that the Cleveland Browns didn't know that he wasn't going to get either a year or less, you are fooling yourself. They knew what was coming. So now it's back on Roger Goodell. I am going to be shocked if Roger Goodell adds in the game. Because if that's the case, why do you got a third party? You got the third party to do what you don't have to do. So I think he's going to keep it at 6 because all this, when you hear this, after reviewing everything, get ready for, we're going to stick with what Judge Sue Robinson said. And she said, you don't have to dig into like the reason why she chose 6 and not a year. But BJ, I mean, like I said, until proven wrong, if you are the face of the NFL, they protect you. Ben Roethlisberger was the face of the NFL. Deshaun Watson, one of the faces of the NFL. Ray Rice was not. Greg Hardy was not. Have you heard from Greg Hardy? Have you seen Ray Rice? Greg Hardy does UFC now, right? So all I'm saying is, I feel bad for the ladies involved because no matter what money they got, man, you're never going to see. You're never going to hear from them. Money makes you go away. So we'll see. But I just knew that Deshaun Watson, if he's practicing and doing all this stuff, they knew he was going to be gone for a full year. You wouldn't have saw him in Browns camp. But they're like, no, man, he won't get a year. They kind of know what's coming. We'll see how this thing plays out. But I agree with what Louis Riddick said. Make it definitive to where we know what it is. But when they're really, when you look at consequences in the NFL, it's blank. You have to write in as it goes. It's going to be a slippery slope, especially if you're in the face of the NFL. Like I said, Deshaun Watson, week 7, there are going to be guys on the PUP list. You ain't going to see the week 7. So they're going to look at him like on the PUP list. He'll be back in week 7 against Baltimore. It's going to be Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson. You can go ahead and book it.
Well, you guys are right about this. When you saw it, it's a bad look. It's hard to understand. And you mentioned this is from the ESPN news release. Watson has been accused of sexual assault and inappropriate conduct during massage sessions and civil lawsuits filed by 25 women. And then last month, the Texans reached settlements with 30 women who made claims or were prepared to make claims against the organization for its alleged role regarding the allegations against Watson. And this is very concerning stuff. I mean, very concerning stuff. And, a lot of people, as you mentioned, Kevin, in the state of Georgia, if you follow, some of those accounts, some of the responses you saw were wait, Calvin Ridley made a bet, like you said, and when you compare and contrast these things, you're not trying to do that. But if you're thinking about it like that, Calvin Ridley made a bet and is gone for a year, maybe even more than a year. I mean, there's the potential that it's more than a year. And you're not saying it's okay but you're not even talking about a game that he played in. I mean,
Right, yeah.
So to kind of compare and contrast and look at situations, look at various situations, countless situations, like you said, Kevin, with marijuana, with other circumstances, and then compare that with this and the extremely concerning details that are here, the extremely concerning allegations that are here. It's hard to look at this and understand 6 games. And Ben, you were explaining about with the new CBA, you have the judge who reviews, reviews the information, makes a decision, kind of takes it out of Roger Goodell's hands. I guess there's an opportunity
for
either side to appeal or add to.
The judge takes out all the back and forth. Like Roger Goodell can supersede what the judge says, but it makes it much easier for him to make a ruling when you're going through a judicial process. Because think about it. Is anybody going to argue if he said, well, listen, they went through an entire process. I'm the commissioner. So he still has supreme power in these things. But why if he says, I'm going to stick with 6, what is anybody going to say? Because you went through a judge, the disciplinary officer, Judge Sue Robinson. And let's face it, commissioners don't like doing discipline. In no league, by the way. Not just Roger Goodell, but this has been a soap opera. You haven't heard from any of the young ladies. I think you might have heard from one out of this entire process. But as a guy that was in the National Football League, it's when it comes to football, I can tell you everything that happens. When it comes to discipline, I can't, because it's different for every single person. Like it's like each of all 2,000 something players or whatever it is, it's something different for every single person. But depending on who you are, will have a lot to do. Because I'm pretty sure, and I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure because Deshaun Watson is an active member, I think the team that he's on, that's who has to give him legal representation. I don't even think he pays for it. I think it's like the Texans or the Browns. I could be wrong, but I think that's how it goes as well. So,
do you think ultimately, I mean, this is what it ends up being, or do you think more games get added?
I tend to agree with Ben. I don't think they're going to add anything because, as you said, what are you going to a third party for? And to me, I don't think it fully absolves it, but it absolves the NFL of saying we just went by what they told us, right? It's like we wanted more. We agreed to this process. We have to go. I think they can play the high ground on this. Like, well, we wanted more, but we agreed with the players to this process that a third party is going to do this. And, well, she gave him 6. And I think for a lot of people, the NFL is probably, and Ben, we know this is true, this will be a big deal until he's back on the field.
Yes. I mean,
and then it's one of those things, okay, now he's playing. Yes. You can be mad about it all you want and frustrated about it all you want, but he's playing. So then that becomes the story. And I think the NFL is okay with that, right? Hey, he's playing against Lamar Jackson. I don't know if you'll have the big Michael Vick, I'm back, but the NFL will not be afraid to put him out there. The TV networks will not be afraid to put him on national TV. I think it is a situation where, again, I think it's unfortunate that you don't have any symmetry or consistency. That's what I'm looking for in the way you kind of go about these things. Because again, I innocent until proven guilty. Court of law didn't, but you settled with 20 people, right? And again, we're all smart enough to kind of know when you settle, either it's cheaper to not go to trial, right? It's cheaper, or you just want it to be over with. If that's with one person, that's one thing on the optics, right? I mean, am I wrong? It's 20 people. Like, it's safe to say.
It's 20-something people.
Yeah. Well, there's more that he hadn't settled with. But I mean,
Yeah.
it's safe to say if I settle with one person, or I'm in a civil situation and I settle with one person to make it be over, I want it to, be done with. I don't want to go through the legal process, okay. If I settle with 20 people, I think both of you will look at me and go, Kevin, you probably did something you shouldn't have.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing if it's one. Now we're up into 20. Like, that's more than that's more than a coincidence, I think, at that point. So to me, I think this is going to sit wrong with a lot of people. And as you said, Ben, I think it's a situation where people will look at the NFL and go, well, why are you harder on Calvin Ridley doing? And again, I understand doing something that is legal now in like 8 or 9 states versus inappropriate behavior outside of the workplace with women in general, who you obviously want to be fans of your game. And that's treated as less of a thing than a guy who was injured, or, well, he wasn't injured. He was on leave for, to get his mental wellness.
Oh, yeah, he just chose to walk away from the game for a year.
He's gambling in another state
Yeah.
on his team, who he's a part of, not with, to win a game. And that's treated more seriously than 20 women, plus some that haven't apparently been done with. I think that's where people are going to get frustrated with the NFL here. We got so much to get to here on the show. Braves are rolling right along. Austin Riley having himself a heck of a month. Braves got a big week ahead. 2 games with the Phillies, 5 against the Mets this week. We'll come back. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and out. Braves off today. They get 2 with the Phillies, 5 in 4 days against the Mets coming up. So if you're looking for the Braves to try to make a statement against the New York Mets this weekend, might be a tremendous time to make that happen. But Austin Riley, fellas, is absolutely unbelievable. Hank Aaron's record for extra base hits in a month broken by Austin Riley, having a tremendous season. Back to 301, 29 homers, 68 RBI. And this is a guy that a year and a half ago, people were saying, might he be a trade piece? Might we need to move on and see if we can get another third baseman for the future? Now that sounds ludicrous, and it is.
And I'm going to give you credit, though, because not that long ago, you're right, there were a lot of people who were saying, okay, Austin Riley, we know he has power, but what do we project him as over the full duration of a season? And not only since that point has he gone on to be instrumental in winning a World Series,
Absolutely, yeah.
but a couple of years ago, you were saying, put him in, let him play, let's see. And what you have is not only one of the best third basemen in baseball, but an MVP candidate. And again, guys, you're talking about breaking Hank Aaron's franchise record, maybe the greatest player in the history of the game for extra base hits in a month. I mean, Austin Riley had the walk-off in a game where nobody could get a hit, yesterday against Arizona. Austin Riley is one of the hottest and best players in baseball right now.
Austin Riley is a part of the greatest infield in Braves history, and he proved that by winning the World Series. It wasn't him by himself. Austin Riley had to share a team, had to be on the same team with a guy like, Freddie Freeman. And now you look at what he's doing, Kevin. Once again, it goes back to going into his second year. It wasn't, can he play? It's, hey man, can he hit this pitch? Can he hit that pitch? Then he's coming off an MVP caliber season last year. And Kevin, going into the season, what are the biggest question marks? The health of Ronald Acuna. Can Max Fried continue to take the next step? Obviously, we didn't know going into the season wasn't going to be a Freddie Freeman, but that's a total different thing there as well. And it's Austin Riley. Can he have a bounce back season like he did? Can he have another MVP caliber season? And this goes back to when people didn't get voted to the All-Star game and just started hitting bombs. Bomb after bomb after bomb. Then became an All-Star. But I give all the credit to Alex Anthopoulos, because at the end of the day, BJ, it's like, when do you call these guys up? You know what you got in your farm system. Austin Riley has been lights out. It was, hey man, where you going to put him? You going to put him in right field or center field when he's not at third? No, he's the third baseman. And he's proven it. Everything you wanted him to do, he's done. He doesn't get overshadowed by Dansby. He doesn't get overshadowed by Isley. He doesn't get overshadowed by Acuna. And that doesn't mean these guys are in the – I think Dansby is doing what he's doing. I think Ronald Acuna, sorry, Braves fans, he's going to be all right. But I just think the fact that, he's not that many homers away from 100, and this is really kind of his full –
Yeah, for his career, I think he has almost 90 already.
So I think that when you look at what a guy like Austin Riley does is, you talk about how dangerous this lineup can be. He gives you everything you need. He's a clutch player. He's just as good at third base as he is with his bat. And I think when you think about that's what playing for the Braves does, is when I don't have to be the guy every single night, but I can be the guy every single night at the same time. Austin Riley is about as good as it gets at third base. And once again, while I thought that Dansby was going to be the priority in the offseason, Austin Riley might be becoming the biggest priority, Kevin, come this offseason for Alex Anthopoulos and company.
I think he has become a huge part of the franchise. I mean, people talk about Acuna, people talk about Hudson, and Matt Olson with his 8-year deal. Austin Riley is not going anywhere. I think with every swing of the stick, this is an honest conversation right now. More important to pay Austin Riley or Dansby Swanson at this point?
For me, it's Austin Riley.
And you're getting Gold Glove caliber defense. Statistically, Dansby one of the best defensive shortstops in Major League Baseball, and playing, having a good offensive season as well. Ben, what say you? Are you all about paying Dansby first, or are you looking at Austin Riley saying, "Look, you need to lock this guy in"? And if you got that with Albies and Acuna and Matt Olson on long-term deals, Michael Harris with 5 years of control, you are going to be good for a long, long time.
I know BJ ain't gonna like this. I still think Dansby is a priority, because this is the thing. We forget. Dansby was about as rough as it got when the season first started, right?
It's true.
Dansby is under a lot of pressure. Like, Dansby being an Atlanta guy, being the number 1 overall pick, all these things, I get it. But he has more than supersede expectations, and Just because another guy's balling don't mean that I don't deserve. No. I haven't earned my money. Plus,
Yeah, but I guess the question is, and I don't know. I mean, none of
Are
us
you
know
going to
this.
be able to keep everybody?
Yes,
But yeah.
can you do both? Like,
don't-
can you sign
it just-
everybody?
This is the thing. This is the thing. In sports, the biggest thing you could do for yourself, right, is just, the greatest thing you could do for yourself is just outprice the team you own. Baseball is always different, right? I just think that Alex Anthopoulos, once again, Kevin he's working with a different type of, money situation. So Dansby it's not what the Braves could offer him, it's what another team could. That's what it always is. It ain't, because once again, BJ, I know you don't agree with this, but they did not do wrong by Freddie Freeman. I'm gonna tell you why. You know how you know they didn't do wrong? Because they did wrong by them. Why didn't the agent tell them about the counteroffer? I never told him.
Yeah, that was that.
Because this is
Why
the
did
thing.
he fire his agent?
Exactly. You're not.
Just
Oh, wait,
period.
think about this. Think about this. We thinking that Freddie Freeman is crying when he came back to the Braves because it's all I'm back in town. No, he found out they had a counteroffer.
I know. Listen, that agent stuff is crazy. Okay, what I just to go back and now we're talking about Dansby's contract. All I'm saying is I thought, and this goes back to conversations we had a while ago, that with a guy like Freddie Freeman, you don't do the, here's the low offer, here's your offer, let's find, dude, it's Freddie Freeman, get it done. And you had and you had time to get it done up until the last minute when it got back and forth. But yes, I understand that agent dynamic is just totally crazy. I mean, that was just startling when you saw that even happens. I mean, but look, Matt Olson, leads the National League in doubles now. Freddie Freeman is hitting like 75 points higher and is an MVP candidate himself.
And I know you.
But Austin Riley, but to go back to kind of the MVP Austin Riley kind of categorization right now, Freddie Freeman is having an MVP type season. So is Austin Riley.
Yeah.
I mean, right up there with maybe Goldschmidt.
Who's the best shortstop in baseball right now, you think?
I mean, Dansby has played his way into that discussion.
Listen, 2 or 3 things can be true all at once. Freddie Freeman can be an MVP caliber season. Austin Riley can be MVP caliber season, and Dansby Swanson can be the best shortstop in baseball. The thing about it is, Alex Anthopoulos got a lot of good problems on his hands, a lot. But I still say that Dansby has earned a contract extension offseason. That does not mean that Austin hasn't earned one as well. The difference is,
but if you're
Austin
the Braves,
go to arbitration.
But if you're the Braves and you can only sign one, I think that's the question.
All right, Kevin is the tiebreaker. All right, Kevin, they can only sign one. Who would, Dansby or Austin Riley?
I mean, and I love Dansby. I do. But and here's maybe a little bit more of my thinking. Dansby Swanson will be hard to replace. You have better prospects at shortstop in the minor leagues than you do third base right now. And I'm sorry, you can't replace 6'4", 240 who hits 40 bombs.
He might hit 50 this year.
You can't. And he plays great defense. So to me, I'm making Austin Riley a priority over Dansby if I can't have them both. We'll come back. We'll keep talking Braves baseball. Fred Owens, Tomahawk Tate going to join us. Don't go anywhere. We're streaming live, ESPNCoastal.com and on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and out. Braves off tonight, but they've got a big week. 2 games with the Phillies, 5 with the Mets, including a big doubleheader coming up on Saturday. Joining us here from Tomahawk Take, good friend of the show, Fred Owens joins us. Fred, welcome. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. I just got back from Atlanta, watching 2 wins down there. So I've had a pretty good weekend, and I'm about halfway recovered.
Yeah. Fred, you come into the trade deadline. You make a little bit of a move for Adrianza. I'm guessing to stem the tide until Albies comes back. You got, about 24 hours to go here until this thing's got to be wrapped up. Do you see Alex making another move?
Well, I feel like he'll make some kind of move. I mean, Adrianza was more a question of getting Cano's dead weight off of the roster. He wasn't. I never liked him in the first place, to be fair to him. So take everything I say with a grain of salt. I wouldn't have had him there in the first place because I don't like cheaters. However, he wasn't hitting anywhere he was this year. He didn't play great defense. He was supposed to be a left-handed bat. He wasn't any of those things. At least we know A-Ray will go out and give us 100% every time he hits the field. He's a great personality. He was with the team last year, had a couple of big hits for us. Is a speedy guy, can play a little bit of second, a little bit of short, a little bit of third. Even plays a little left field if he has to. So I think it was more a question of getting somebody who's actually working hard, and as opposed to somebody who didn't really care.
Fred, we're at the 100 and maybe a couple of game mark here this season. The Braves are great, one of the best teams in baseball. What surprised you the most about this team? I know the defending champs, but what surprised you the most about the success this team has had this year?
Well, I think what surprises me the most is that we're doing it without Ronnie being at the top of his game. I mean, when Acuna came back, he had that little 20 or 30 game sprint where he was really good, but since that point, he seems to have lost his ability to make contact with any kind of lift on it. He's hitting the ball hard, but it tends to be on the ground or a low line drive or falls just short of the wall. He's either just under it a little bit or way under it. So I think he's lost a little bit of his timing, a little bit of his bat playing somewhere along the line. I think he's showing signs of getting out of it, and if he does, the league's in real trouble. However, with him gone and Albies gone, to be where we are, considering where we were without just Acuna last year, I think it's pretty much a tale of Matt Olson and particularly Austin Riley, who has to have worked himself into a National League MVP candidate. Probably going to be the player of the month for July, and quite well earned. And he's on everybody's radar now. Nobody wants to pitch to Austin Riley, and I think that's part of the deal. William Contreras coming through big like he has been part of the deal. But, if those guys hadn't come through, we had some serious holes there. Swanson having a great year. The core of the lineup has been good. It's the peripheries that haven't been, and we're hoping that, we can come through with something to do that, maybe get a shot caller to get Marcell Ozuna going. But other than that, that's what I think has been happening. The young guys have said, we're not going to let this happen. And Riley Stolen took the team on his back and been carrying them for at least 2 months.
And Fred, with all that being said, obviously the Braves are going to make it into the playoffs this year. I mean, either as a wild card or win the division. Do you think they end up catching the Mets and make it 5 in a row, or do you see them going in as a wild card team this year?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here. Certainly the team is capable of doing that, but we know that the Mets are bringing DeGrom back on Saturday and having him and Scherzer back in tow, and they picked up 3 players over the week, the left-handed bat that I think maybe the Braves had their eye on, and Naquin. Things like that have just made their lineup deeper and harder to beat. Having said that, they were well ahead of us last year, and this team grabbed their socks and just pulled them up and ran over the top of them. I don't think it's going to be that easy this year. I think the higher likelihood is that we're going to get in as the second place team in the league. But if we can go out and kick the Mets' butts this weekend and pull at least a game back from them, let them know that we haven't gone away, then I think we have a chance of taking the whole thing. But again, a lot of that depends on how we reinforce the roster over the next 28 hours or 26 hours or so.
Fred Owens, Tomahawk Take, joining us here on 3 and Out. And Fred, I wanted to go back to something you mentioned about Acuna and just where he's at right now? Because obviously he is one of the franchise players. The Braves love it. Do you think you give him the benefit of the doubt? Like, look, he's going to find it, or do you think there's some other issue, like maybe the knee is not where he wants it to be? Where do you kind of come down on Acuna, and is it just it's a matter of time, or do you have some concern that it is something else?
No, I think Ronnie's all right. I watched Mark Gross this morning, and he made a very good point that we can't say it's his ACL anymore. He's well past the year mark. He's running well. He's not. There's nothing that says there's anything wrong with his base, but it just looks like he's lost his swing plane a little bit. He's not off by much. We're talking like fractions of an inch off here, and he's hit a couple of balls hard the last 2 or 3 games. When I was down there, he hit a couple of them really hard with lift on that just didn't quite have the oomph for it. And I think he's coming around, and there could be such a thing as he just comes around and wakes up one morning, goes out, goes 4 for 4 with 2 home runs, and we're off and running with him. This is a great ball player. Let's not try to hide his light under any bushel. This is a top 10 ball player in baseball. He's having a slump. Slumps happen. He's young. We forget how young Ronnie is. He's a young player having a slump. He's always been the best guy on the field every time he took the field, and this is all new to him. But he's going to be fine. He's going to come out of this, and hopefully he's going to come out of this the next week or so and start destroying National League pitching and making everybody look at the Braves as the people who are going to kick the Mets' butt this year.
Fred, how would you utilize Contreras in that? As you mentioned, the power's there, the production has been there. Is he a player where maybe you use him more prominently moving forward as a DH? Can you do that and also be the primary backup catcher? I mean, is there any viability to him playing with any consistency in the outfield? How would you sort of manage him moving forward?
Well, I think they tried the outfield experiment. It wasn't awful, but I don't think they want to do that again. I think that you're going to see. I'd like to see him take some more games in defense. It looks to me like Travis is getting a little tired back there, and I'd like to see Contreras, who's a young, strong horse of a guy, get a couple more games back there. Playing him as the DH is a risk because if something happens to Travis behind the plate, then you lose your DH. I suppose they could bring up a catcher from the minor leagues in place of the outfielders out there, but I just don't see that happening. They used him as the DH over the weekend. I think you're going to see his bat in the lineup more often. The problem we have with the DH is that we're paying Ozuna all that money, and he left his bat in the other house when he moved. He just didn't bring it with him this year. He's been hitting bad pitchers and pitchers who throw him cookies. He's been hitting them hard, but as we get towards the postseason, pitchers like that get scarce. And I think you're going to see Contreras get a lot more bats as DH along the way if Ozuna continues to slump.
And Fred, with this Braves team, I mean, as far as like in the playoffs, what are they going to have to overcome this year in the playoffs? You got pitching, you got an incredible lineup. We keep talking about left field. What are they going to have to be able to overcome to go deeper to the playoffs this year?
Well, every playoff run requires pitchers to pitch. Okay, our pitchers, Fried's been good, Wright's been good, Strider's been okay, he's been good. Charlie's not been himself. We have to get the starters deeper into the game because the back of our bullpen hasn't been as good. I keep hoping that Yates is going to come up and be that guy, but he had a rough outing last night. I just think in postseason play, pitching and defense wins, and for the Braves, that means making left field better and getting our starters on track. If this team hits at all, it's going to be hard on everybody else. Now, it looks like if we paired up today, if we were in second place and it started today, we'd play the Padres, and we know how much fun that is. So I think that it's just going to come down to our starters pitching and our relievers doing their job as the game gets deeper. That means Will Smith's got to find it, or we've got to find somebody to pitch for him. Because right now he's a mop-up man. He's the worst pitcher in the bullpen right now, and that's saying something. And Kinley's prone to be getting injured here the last few weeks. That makes Minter more important. Dylan Lee has stepped up. He's not a closer guy. That's why I think we need an arm at the back of the bullpen. But it's all about pitching in the postseason, pitching and defense, and your batters have to hit. You can't go into prolonged slumps. You can't have people just going into a deep cold spell like Ozuna has been all year and like Ronnie's been off and on most of the summer. You got to be out there to hit. But pitching and defense is the key.
Fred Owens, Tomahawk Take, joining us here on 3 and Out. Fred, before we let you go, had a question thrown out there to our listeners. Obviously, with the way Austin Riley is playing right now, just had a tremendous month. Knowing you got the Max Frieds and other guys out there you're going to have to take care of. If you can only keep one, higher priority, Dansby or Austin Riley right now?
Well, Austin's still got 3 years of service time. Dansby walks at the end of the year if you don't sign him. You've got to bring Swanson back first, and you've got to get him under control, and then you go look at Riley and try to buy out his contract years. But I don't know. I mean, I would love to say, okay, let's go give Fried and Riley and Wright and Swanson a contract today. I don't think it works that way. Okay, I don't think that the Braves can make that kind of choice now. They're going to have to decide: are we going to sign Dansby? We're going to make him the offer. Is he going to take it? If he takes it, yes. If he doesn't, where are we going from there? If we don't sign him, then are we going to use that money to bring in to extend Fried or extend Wright or extend Riley? I think that's where we're at right now. Everything pivots around the Swanson deal, much like it did with the Freeman deal last year. Except I don't think it's going to be that difficult to get a deal for Dansby. Or at least I hope it isn't. I hope I'm not talking out my ass. But it's just a question of getting Dansby under contract so you have a future, a look at the payroll down the line, and then you can go forward with Riley and Wright and Fried.
Fred Owens, Tomahawk Take, our guest here on 3 and Out. Fred, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Always my pleasure. You guys stay safe, Bagel.
Will do. Good to have Fred with us here on the program. We'll come back with more 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here on 3 and Out. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, and BJ Bennett back with us here on the 3 and Out. So we got the full studio, a full house, so to speak. Ben and BJ back together here on 3 and Out.
Glad to be back. Missed you guys. Missed you, Kevin.
I'm sure you did. We missed all we still had our fill-in moments.
Oh yeah, we had some. You had
where
some
Ben
BJ
would
Bennett.
play your role, or
Yeah,
I even
yeah.
had some slips.
Yeah, Kevin going
Into,
to some Kevin going to some stats sometimes. I'm like, Kevin, you all right? Well, I just want to go to stats. I want to know, what the QBR rating is. I want and I think one time he says it's currently constituted. I said, oh,
Kevin's into the stats. No, like
no.
quietly.
Kevin had changed it last year. I'm
Yeah.
trying to tell you, like Kevin is doing different stuff. Like
Had to
Kevin
fill
said,
that role.
I might have heard Kevin say something about, yeah, man, I'll take the double fudge. And then he looked at
No,
me. and-
that you never-
that would be outrageous.
Listen, if somebody catch Kevin Thomas eating a salad, that is not Kevin. Double fudge is definitely not Kevin.
It's imposter.
But Kevin might be coming around on bowl games. But he said he got to get his own bowl game first,
Yeah.
aka in Vegas.
Give me my own bowl game, and we're all
The
we're all
no-name
good.
bowl game in Vegas.
I couldn't have my own bowl game. I did not win the 1.2 billion over the weekend.
Somebody won it?
Somebody did.
Hey.
It wasn't Kevin Thomas. I'll tell you that.
Well, I know it wasn't Kevin because Kevin's at work today.
No, that's how you throw people off. You don't want people up in your bit. You show up after you win the lottery, and then like 6 weeks down the line, you just disappear. Like, what happened?
Yeah, he's told us that.
Did the
before.
missus give you your limit?
I wouldn't text you,
But did
call
the
you
mi-
nothing.
Yeah, but did the missus give you your lemon cake with the little frosted stuff on the top? Did you get that?
I did have lemon cake for my birthday over the week. Yes, I did. So I did have that. It's all good.
Oh, happy birthday. Late.
A few days. But that's
Very
fine.
late, or
3 days.
I think that's within the window.
Did you still say belated at that
Did
point?
you get him a gift?
I think we know the answer to that. We'll come back. Take 3 around the corner. David Hale's talking Chris Gordy talking college football coming up in hour number 2. And we'll look at David Hale, great piece on what people think about the future of college football. Hour 2, we will discuss David Hale's future of college football. He did a survey of 200 folks around college football, talk about the future direction of college football. Some interesting findings in there. We'll get to that coming up in just a little bit. Excuse me. Chris Gordy will join us, host of the Locked On SEC podcast, as camps opening up all across the Southeastern Conference. He'll join us coming up in about 30 minutes here on the program. But first, fellas, it is 4 o'clock. Let's take 3 here on 3 and Out. All right, take 1. Ric Flair. Woo! 73 years old, was still out there doing it. Won his final wrestling match. Of course he did.
What do you mean, of course he did?
Well, the last time when it had the retirement match, I think the Heartbreak Kid gave him some sweet chin music and knocked him out.
I think
But he wrestled again. His final wrestling match. Of course, Ric Flair's going to go out on top. Where does he rank all time, fellas?
Wow. I mean, that's tough. And how do you compile a list like that? We were going through some of our favorites earlier, and what is it? Just the immediacy of think of a wrestler, and then these guys come to mind. Is it you think about Hulk Hogan and Stone Cold?
No, it's no
Ultimate Warrior, The Rock.
No, BJ, you doing
Undertaker.
No. Me and Kevin do this on the show sometimes. We don't get starstruck because the reason why you don't get starstruck is you're not going to see him. If you saw this person out, would you be compelled enough to say something to him?
Yeah. Yes. No. I don't know. It's Ric Flair. I'd be.
Hold on.
I'd be in awe.
This is the thing. Now, this is why. Okay. The reason why. Okay. Even to answer the question though, is he the most iconic one? Stone Cold is up to Hulk Hogan, man. I mean, Hulk Hogan was Thunder Lips on freaking Rocky 3. Rocky had to go out there and fight him.
I think Ric Flair's on every list.
He's on the Mount. I think he's on the Mount Rushmore.
So if you're talking about is he the best? He's on the list. Is he the greatest? He's on the list. Is he the most iconic? He's on the list. I mean, you got people walking around going, "Woo!" I mean, they don't even know what they're
dealing.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't even know what who they're referencing.
I will say this: is he?
I cannot say right now.
Yeah.
Without hesitation or doubt that he's number one. And there may be people listening going, oh, he's my number one. There's no doubt. And that's the beauty of creating a list. I think he's on the list.
Yeah.
I think he's top 5.
Uh-huh.
I think, Sting, Andre the Giant. I mean, there are so many.
Yes.
But I don't think I can sit here and say today he is the greatest of all time. He's on the list, in the conversation, right there, but I can't put him number one.
I can't put him number one because Stone Cold. Oh, man. Stone Cold, WWF. Stone Cold used to have long blonde hair, right? Came back, bald head, bald head, jean shorts, he got his leather vest on, walking pigeon-toed, catching 2 beers. I'm catching 2 beers out the crowd. He said, I can turn your lights out right there. You got Stone Cold 316. Giving people the 1 finger salute. You are not number one. And I'm sorry, look, as far as just took it to another level. I ain't never seen nothing like The Rock. The Rock, obviously, The Rock dad was incredible as well. But for me, it's always gonna be Hulk Hogan because I'm just saying Hulk Hogan's, he gets to the point to where, no matter how many times you hit him with the leg drop, it's just, and this just lets you know too, Kevin and BJ. Listen, back in the day, you were a wrestling fan. That's it. I don't care who you were. Kevin was doing the Radisson Rick Rude dance in here.
Yeah.
So for me, listen, love Ric Flair. Ric Flair the wrestling is what Deion Sanders is the football. Their brand just keeps going. So brand wise, it's Ric Flair. But listen, I'm sorry, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold, and I got to say this: my favorite wrestler of all time is Bret the Hitman Hart. Love Owen Hart, but it's Bret the Hitman Hart, man. Bret the Hitman Hart was in a ladder match, man. It was an hour long. It was a 60-minute ladder match. It was him and Shawn Michaels. He made the whole 60 minutes, and then he was walking out the cage. They told me, Vince McMahon walked back and said, "You got to go back." And then Shawn Michaels hit him with some beautiful, beautiful chin music, and he beat him. And I cried I said, "Man, that is messed up. You don't do it to Bret. Love you, Ric Flair, but you are not." And I know our Twitter feed gonna be lighting up. I love Ric Flair, but he's not when I think of wrestling, I'm sorry, I'm gonna think of a couple of names before I get to Ric Flair.
Look, I think if you're going to go top 5, he's in it.
Yes,
Number 1 all time. It's tough because he's got the legacy, the 4 horsemen. He's got the the figure 4. He's got the styling. Probably he's got the persona.
he got it.
He is definitely up there. I would say top 5. I'm going to say probably top 4 on my list. I'm debating whether I push him into the top 3, but I think number 1 to me is Stone Cold. I think he came in, had the old persona. He had the catchphrase. He had all that and just kind of had a new way of doing things. He has also the big signature move, the Stone Cold Stunner. Hulk Hogan to me, number 2. I mean, what you gonna do, bro? Like,
What you gonna do?
Like,
Yeah.
No, I'm saying,
Yes.
like, walk up to anybody
Yes.
that is probably over 20 years old and go, "What you gonna do, brother?" They'll be like,
If you only won one bandana in your life,
Yes.
it probably had Hulk Hogan on it.
my number 3, I'll go ahead of him. I'll say Undertaker.
Come on.
I'll put Ric Flair at number 4, and then The Rock will be at number 5.
To Vince's point, I think
Yes,
The
sir.
Rock, the Rock is there.
He took it to another level.
Yeah, he's absolutely there.
Listen, we was going through the list, the top 25, and we're saying, oh, no, we're looking at the Chris Benoit's.
It's
You
like
know,
any other top 10 list. You get to 10.
I mean,
real quick.
Roddy
It's
White,
like-
Papa, Jake the Snake. I mean, the thing is, and we knew all these guys. Now, I know none of the wrestlers. I know John Cena. That's it. I don't know none of these guys now. So, hey, man, Ric Flair, man, listen, at age 73, I just want to be moving around. You are wrestling people. So, sir, you have defied the laws of gravity. You have beat the hell out of Father Time, but I do not believe that this is your last match. I think he's going to do something else for us all.
Well, that's another question before we get to the end of take 3. All right, take 2. Per Sportico, the Dallas Cowboys have been named the most valuable franchise across all sports at $7.64 billion. They beat out the Yankees by $630 million. Are the Cowboys really that much bigger of a brand than everybody else?
All right, Ben, you've been trying to tell me this for a long time because when lists like this come out, you always go, don't care, don't need to see it. It's the Cowboys. And you played in the league.
Yeah.
You played in Dallas.
Yes.
I know you've had friends you played with who were Cowboys fans.
Yes.
My thought, I understand and agree with that, is that the Yankees would have been closer. And I guess in the context of billions of dollars, 630 million isn't that far away, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's like you're thinking about New York City, the Yankees, the history that goes back, forever. 26 championships or whatever it is for the New York Yankees. I would have thought, and maybe this is closer than I can mathematically process because the numbers are so big, but I would think the Yankees are right there. When you think about the New York Yankees and just the logo, the pinstripes, the history, the great players. But to your point, every time we've discussed something like sports business, sports value, you always go Dallas, the Cowboys, and this list proves that.
Yes, BJ, because this is the thing. How many championships do the Yankees got?
I mean, is it 20? It's like 26.
20, I think 26, 27, yeah.
Dallas Cowboys, I know they got 3. I think that's the only 3 they got, right? So this ain't about, once again, this is about the biggest brand. Jerry Jones goes,
America's team.
Yeah, we're America's team. And for those who don't know, the original America's team, the real America's team is the Atlanta Braves.
I was going to say.
Check me on that. Anyway, the thing about the Dallas Cowboys is they are taking advantage of the most loved sport in America, and they're America's team. And I don't know how, listen, I mean, was Mr. Steinberg, the owner of the Yankees, Steinberg?
What,
Steinbrenner.
Steinbrenner. The most recognizable owner, not named Michael Jordan, is Jerry Jones. Everybody. I mean, I just think that when your focus is branding, like BJ, will we care about Dak the way we do if he didn't play for Dallas? No. Will we care about Tony Romo if he didn't play for Dallas? No. The Dallas Cowboy brand gets on my nerves. I can't stand it. They are the king of wait till next year. They are the biggest wait till next year fans. But as far as branding, yes, it is the Dallas Cowboys. You don't got to like it. The biggest fan base in America is the Dallas Cowboys. My homie, Ben Hall, thought I knew everything about him. Country boy from South Carolina, went to Clemson, goes nowhere. This boy got a plane ticket to go see the Cowboys. And I said, you a Cowboys fan? And he said, and I quote, does anything else exist? Oh my God. The evil empire of football is the Dallas Cowboys. I don't care what nobody say. It is Dallas. They make me sick, but it is true.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's not even a question that it is the Dallas Cowboys, America's team. They got the big following. You got Jerry World. You got one of the most boisterous owners in all of sports. It's football. It's the NFL. I know the Yankees would be number 2, but yeah, I wasn't surprised by that. I wasn't surprised by that at all.
Mm-hmm. Ain't about
Dallas
championships.
Cowboys.
Ain't about championships no more.
It said who's the most valuable, not who hung the most banners.
Come on, but they hung the most banners. I'm just saying, it is Dallas. I am giving y'all love. I can't stand y'all. Get on my nerves.
All right, moving along. Take 3. Pac-12 Commissioner George Kliavkoff told ESPN he sees college football playoff format changing before the contract ends in 2025, saying, I'm really confident that we're going to expand the college football playoff. It actually wouldn't surprise me once we agree on the format if it happens before the end of the current term. Once you agree the format, why wouldn't you? End of quote. Will it expand before 2025, and how many teams do you believe it'll be?
I think it's hard to say yes with conviction that it's going to expand because there's so much that is yet to happen within the college football landscape. And I'm not talking about like name, image, likeness, or I'm talking about conference realignment, because how do you know what the postseason format is going to look like when you don't know what the infrastructure it represents is going to look like? I mean, are these teams going to wait until the original announcement dates or the initial dates that were stated before they move conferences? Are you going to see a conference disappear? Are you going to see 2 conferences disappear? Are you going to see, and keep in mind when we talk about conference realignment, oftentimes we focus on the Power 5, but let's not forget a Group of 5 team was just in the playoff. So could the Group of 5 have some sort of conference merging with who knows who involved? What happens with Notre Dame? I think these questions have to be answered before you can answer when is the playoff going to expand and how many teams are going to be in it, because to move the playoff or change the playoff before the landscape is settled, to me, means that you're going to have to change the playoff again. So any contract that you sign or anything that you negotiate or kind of put on paper is going to have to be written with a pencil and not pen, because we've seen all kind of stuff. I mean, a couple of months ago, if you just said, hey, the Pac-12, all the teams out there, like the only teams they're coming to the Big Ten. Hey, the ACC, the teams that matter, they're now being rumored about going to the SEC, maybe the Big Ten. I mean, what's going to happen? Is there going to be a Big 12 in 3 years? Is there going to be an ACC as we know it in 3 years? Is there going to be a Pac-12? I mean, this is the commissioner of the Pac-12. Who's going to be in the Pac-12 in 3 years? So because of that, I think this will be briefly on hold, but it is clear inevitable change is coming. We will not have a 14 college football playoff for long. There is going to be a massive restructuring of the postseason format that is undoubtedly on the horizon, but the conference realignment mess has to get settled before that happens.
It's going to be 0% chance it's going to be a college football playoff expansion before the contract goes up, because you do not want to, tee off Mr. Greg Sankey. You don't want to do that because he's already gone. He's already gone to the college football playoff committee and said we want to go to 8. If they do something, if they're trying to do something now, no, it's not gonna happen. It doesn't need to. I do think conference realignment is going to, happen before that. But as far as like change, the reason why is this: if the SEC is getting 4, they're getting 2 with 4, they go to 6. They're gonna get 3? No, leave it alone right now, because it kind of show, because it kind of shown the other conferences, hey man, we got to kind of show what we gonna look like. Because Kevin, we talked about this as well. No matter what happens after 2025, the SEC is going to have a lot of teams in there. You might as well put that in your mind.
Oh, no.
But in order for you to have at least 2 from your conference, you might want to get that. But as far as like you have no reason to do it now. Like what? I just know this though. If you think that USC and UCLA are coming over to the Big Ten and Texas and Oklahoma gonna wait another 4 years, then that's not.
But it's
happening.
not just that though. It's and who knows? But I mean, Oregon, Washington, Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Georgia Tech, Oklahoma State. I mean, there are countless teams out there that there's all kind of speculation about.
Yeah, but BJ, think about this though. There's a difference in somebody calling you for your services and you calling them to be a part of what they got. Only team that has been called is Notre Dame, and they said no. Right now, UW and Oregon called the Big Ten. They were like, we'll wait. So I do think and the SEC has quote said they are good at 16. and the greatest person I hired to go seek you've ever seen is Greg Sankey. Nothing leaks, nothing of that. But I just don't see him switching anything up, because what's the purpose of having a contract if you're gonna just switch things up before it ends? I think they're gonna stick through 2025, but I do think conference realignment will definitely be, we'll definitely know how the conference is gonna stack up by 2025.
I mean, it's not going to move until the realignment gets sorted out. But I think the one quote you left off of here out of this question was from Greg Sankey, and they said, "You're going to take a playoff advice from who? They can't even get a team in."
Talk about it. The Pac-12.
And I think again, this is a situation where Greg Sankey thought he had consensus to move towards a 12-team format already. Remember, back in the early part, it's like, oh, a lot of talk about it going to 12 teams. Greg Sankey was the one working that thing. And then everybody backed out on him, and he was ticked about it. He's like, look, I'm trying to do y'all the favor. We need this for college football. I'm also trying to help you out. And right now, I don't think the Pac-12 commissioner needs to be weighing in on the playoff. I think he needs to be weighing in on, bro, are you going to be around by the time it gets to 2025? Because you know who's calling your phone? San Diego State. Boise, you know whose phone is calling the Big 12? Arizona State, Cal and Stanford are praying and hoping somebody calls their phone. And Oregon and Washington, already won out. Your conference is teetering. Stop talking about the playoffs, George. I think it will, but it's not going to be until Oklahoma and Texas move. And Greg Sankey has said as much. Now he's like, well, we're not going to renegotiate till we know what our conference format is and all that. But you're right. I think it should get bigger. I think the number to me is 8, but I think a lot of people are talking 12 to get more teams in, keep more interest, and obviously make more money if you're the SEC and the Big Ten right now. With bigger conferences means you're probably going to get more teams in at the end of the day. That's Take 3. We do it every day. This time, some interesting findings from David Hale, who's surveyed around college football about the future of the sport. We'll get to that next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back. Here it is, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, and BJ Bennett is back with us. Good to have you back. BJ, as the college football season right around the corner, David Hale, very good article, column, a piece on college football and where it's going. Did a survey with 200 folks around college football about where the game is going. This is an interesting piece about, parity, bowl games, college football playoffs, and all that. People talk about, the SEC just wins all the time. Of those surveyed, 6% said the sport has become too regional. 45% said lack of elite football played in the Northeast and the West Coast wasn't an impediment to the game's help. So the fact that the Pacific Coast has been absent on the national scene when it comes playoff time, and I think that's unfair just to say. I mean, Utah was very good last year. You've seen Oregon has some very good teams, but in the playoffs, they have not been a contender. But only 6% said it's too regional, and and of that, 45% said, look, it's not a problem that the Northeast and Pacific Coast aren't competing right now.
Yeah, and that's a sampling. The feature interviewed 200 athletes, coaches, and administrators, and I think when you hear that, because you hear a lot of the time, college football is too centric, with the focus on the Deep South. Well, this research shows that the people interviewed don't feel like that's a problem. I also found this to be interesting in terms of expansion, what we were just talking about, and this is from the piece on ESPN.com, about a third favored the format that was put forth last year that would include 12 teams with 6 auto bids for conference champions. And then it said another 1/3 of respondents said they preferred an 8-team model. And then other responses included a 16-team playoff, a 12-team model without auto bids, a 32-team tournament, and a few votes for returning to the BCS 2-team model. So I think and this is, again, 200, a sampling of 200 people. That's a pretty large group of players, coaches, administrators. There may not be, for as much as we say, the playoff's going to do this, the playoff's going to do that, this is what's going to happen. There may not be as much as a common consensus as to what the right path is as maybe we all think.
And then it also goes to show that big time football is really dependent upon where you are in the country. Just because most of the national championships are coming from a certain part of the country doesn't mean that people don't think that, they just want to have an opportunity to be in the playoffs. Meaning, we just want to have an opportunity to get in. Right now, there is no opportunity to get in. If that's the case, USC, UCLA going to the Big Ten wouldn't be a big deal if they weren't big time football. So I do, and that's why it's good to always get the posts of the people that actually do it, because most of the noise come from the people who report on it. They're not the ones who doing it. And I just know that, but at the same time, it may be a very, very small percentage that's not worried about the fact that, the national championships are coming from one part of the country. That is going to continue to happen, because if the West Coast teams are trying to come more to the East to be seen, because the visibility is what they think they lacking. I would test this out after 2025 when you got conference realignment, because sometimes you want representation of your conference just to even give you the illusion that we got a shot to win this thing.
Yeah, look, I think when you look at all the different, this is as varied on 8, 12, 16 as it is with everybody else around the country when it comes to college football. I just think, again, when you look at the narrative of, the SEC wins all the time, and so therefore, ACC fans are mad. And I think the game of college football is bigger than, and that's what you have talked about a lot, BJ, is look, everybody wants to win the national championship, but the level of football played in the Big 12, the ACC, the Pac-12, the Big 10 is good. Competing for a conference championship is difficult. It's not just Clemson. If that was that easy, Clemson would have won it last year, and they didn't. You saw great football out of the ACC, despite the fact that they didn't quite have a team good enough to qualify for the 4-team college football playoff. So I think when you look at people involved in the sport, I think that's how they see it more than just, the SEC is winning a lot of it, but the sport of college football is healthy because we have a number of teams that are competing at a high level, are in the top 10, top 15, and winning conference championships, and that will eventually, hopefully, get us somewhere when the format is or the year is right or what have you. I mean, people said the same thing about the BCS. Oh, it's the math. It's going to mess it up. You know, we had a great team. We just couldn't get there because of the math. And now I think it's the same way with the 14 playoff is you can have a great team, but look, there's 5 power conferences and Notre Dame and 4 spots.
Yeah, I mean,
somebody's going to get, and the SEC is taking 2 of those. Somebody's going to get left out. So the access level, even for the Power 5, hasn't been there to get teams in.
And in terms of the math, I mean, Ben, we were talking about this team the other day. I mean, that system clearly wasn't working. Ask Auburn. You go undefeated in the SEC, and you don't get a chance to play for the national championship, aside from all the split national championships and all that stuff, you know, with the voting. But I think that there's good football everywhere. And look, of course, you have your teams that are dominating. There is not, I don't think, the top level of parity that there's been throughout other eras of college football, but you still have great football. I mean, Ben, you've also talked about, I believe Florida's opening game is Utah. And that's one of the games that a lot of people are really excited about, because not only is it a great litmus test for Billy Napier and the Gators and where they are, but Utah feels like they're a playoff team this year.
Yeah.
Utah feels like you beat Florida, and then you have, you know, maybe a win over SC. I mean, you're talking about some high-profile wins, and they could be in the playoff, and they feel like they can compete for a national championship. I'm not going to tell them they can't. I mean, you've seen Cincinnati make history, I think, change the conversation. So this piece by David Hale is really fascinating, great information, but I think there are a lot of really good teams out there. I think there are a lot of moving parts right now in college football. And Ben, you make a great point about maybe there's this gravitational pull to the, you know, to the Big Ten, to the SEC. How does that affect things? How does that affect perception? But I'm telling you, Oregon feels like they're going to be very good. SC is one of the betting favorites to make the college football playoff. Now, again, you're talking about a program that's not going to be in the Pac-12 soon, but SC, it's about as far west as you can go, is one of the favorites to make the college football playoff. And they're going to be really, really good. So keep an eye on these teams this season.
I just think that, I mean, yeah, look at what you just said about Utah playing Florida, saying if they beat Florida, which means they need Florida. When you think about some of these conferences, a conference like the SEC only needs the SEC to get in. Clemson needs to win the ACC to get in. If you need other teams to boost your resume to help you get in, that's a problem. Notre Dame said, look, man, the strength of who we are as a brand and who we play is enough. You don't believe we help? Cincinnati beat Notre Dame. They got in last year. What this shows is if I don't get enough help from who I play with, I need help from outside. If that's the case, USC and UCLA, they would still want to be in the Pac-12. They know I don't want to be here. And because we don't see it coming to the West Coast, we got to go to the East Coast. We'll see what happens, but I do like polling these players and coaches.
We'll talk more about this. A very in-depth article there by David Hale about the future of college football. We'll get to that more coming up in the final hour. Chris Gordy waiting in the wings, Locked On SEC podcast. We're talking SEC football next. It's 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network, also ESPNCoastal.com. And you can catch the show on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube as well. Go to ESPN Coastal on YouTube, and you can follow the show along as well. We are into the month of August, which means college football is coming up this month. Just coming fresh off of SEC Media Days. Now practice is opening up. Chris Gordy, host of the Locked On SEC podcast, joins us here on 3 and Out. Chris, welcome. How are you?
Doing good, guys. Yeah, it's that time of year. It's I'm walking around outside. It's like 110 degrees outside. So, yeah, that means it's time for football.
It'll cool off sometime by December. But, man, coming out of the SEC Media Days, now practices open. Should be a lot of excitement about the quarterback play in the SEC. Which quarterback situation, I guess, excites you the most here in the preseason?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see a couple of these quarterback battles still play out. I think the LSU one is a very unique one. You know, I think ultimately Miles Brennan is going to win that job. Obviously, he's a 6-year senior, been there a while. But Jaden Daniels, the transfer from Arizona State, has started a lot of games, and he's got a lot of football experience. And so ultimately, if he wins out, I think that's very intriguing. But I still think there's a role for both guys. Even if Miles Brennan starts, I think they're going to have packages for Jaden Daniels to play still. So that's an intriguing one. The A&M one is very intriguing. Obviously, you know, Haynes King won the job last year, and he's a dual threat quarterback who can use his legs to move the chains. But obviously, Max Johnson played a lot of games for LSU last year, and you know, threw the game winner against A&M, and you know, he's got a lot of experience as well. So, and then the Auburn one is interesting. TJ Finley has a handful of games under his belt. Zach Calzada beat Alabama for A&M last year. So those are the ones I'm really intrigued by.
Chris, of course, a storybook year for Georgia last year. Stetson Bennett as well, individually with the national championship, top 5 in the country in passer rating. What are your expectations for Stetson Bennett this season?
Yeah, I mean, I've come around a little bit more in Stetson. You know, I know a lot of people still view him as, you know, kind of a game manager type guy, but, you know, he showed down the stretch of last season, and particularly that championship game, that, you know, he can make the big plays. And I was wowed by Stetson in the spring game. I thought he looked as comfortable as he's ever looked, adding the dynamic of Eric Gilbert with another weapon to throw the ball to. So I'm really optimistic on Stetson Bennett. Again, I was shocked being at SEC Media Days and people putting out there, you know, here's my top 5 SEC quarterbacks heading into the season, and Stetson Bennett's not on the list. I'm like, what are we doing? Like, how many times are we going to keep disrespecting this kid and counting him out, only for him to prove us all wrong? So, yeah, I think Stetson's poised for a monster year, particularly with all those weapons he has back.
A lot of big-time quarterbacks coming back this year in the SEC. None bigger than a guy who, you know what type of talent he has. That's up there in Columbia. Spencer Rattler wasn't at SEC Media Days. I mean, big-time talent a couple of years ago coming out. Some had him number 1 recruit in some publications. How do you see him fitting in the SEC, and what style of offense do you think they can have with a guy with that type of talent?
Well, the one thing when I talked to him at the Manning Casting Academy a few weeks ago was that, you know, he pointed out to me that they didn't have their full complement of guys throughout the spring. He said there were guys still, you know, who were coming back from injury. There were guys who were dealing with, you know, coming into the transfer portal who weren't acclimated yet. And he said we just weren't all on the same page yet. He said now that we get ready for fall camp, we're going to have our guys ready, and we're going to start to gel and develop that chemistry. Obviously, he brings a tight end with him from Oklahoma, but I like Josh Vann. He was kind of that go-to target last year. They have DK Joyner, who obviously was a big-time quarterback who transitioned to wide receiver and then transitioned back to quarterback to win them the Duke's Mayo Bowl. But I think they have some weapons, man. It's just about getting them all together and cohesive, getting that cohesion together. But yeah, I think it's everybody's all over the board on South Carolina this year. You like Shane Beamer. He seems like a really cool guy, but man, like if you told me they were only going to win 7 games this year, I would say, okay, I get it. And if you told me that, man, they're going to be spoiler and they're going to play, you know, win 9, maybe 10 games to get to a New Year's Six bowl, I could absolutely see that. So to me, it's all about the defense. How quickly can the defense go? But Rattler also told me that the run game is very underrated there. And as we know, I mean, we had, was it Kevin Harris who led the SEC in rushing just 2 years ago. And I think they're going to try to run the football and balance that attack. But yeah, no doubt. I mean, for a guy who was, the Heisman favorite literally a year ago at this time. Not enough people are talking about him.
Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC podcast, joining us here on 3 and Out. Chris, we see this a lot of times with, I don't want to, maybe it's disrespectful calling it gimmicky, but when you see kind of a new offense, a different offense that nobody really runs, people say, hey, year 2, we've had a chance to see 9, 10, 11 games, how different people try to defend it. We're going to get a second crack at it. Do you feel like there will be a big adjustment to Tennessee in year 2, or do you feel like that thing offensively is just going to be on point? It's can they stop anybody?
Yeah, I think the offense is going to be just fine. I mean, the Heupel system has worked, multiple consecutive years at UCF, and we saw it work in year 1 at Tennessee. I think it's going to work in year 2 at Tennessee because I think Hendon Hooker is that good. I just wonder about that defense. I think they're going to have to win a lot of shootouts. If you remember that game against Kentucky last year, it was basically last man with the ball wins the game. I think Tennessee's going to find themselves in a lot of type of games like that this year. I have some big questions with that secondary. I like Trey Flowers, but man, I need 4 Trey Flowers if I'm going to win some games this year at Tennessee. So, I expect that offense to work. I expect they're going to put up a ton of points. My thing is with Hendon Hooker, he wasn't even the starter week 1. What's he going to do with a full season as a starter? With all the touchdowns he threw last year and only 3 interceptions. So I think he can get better. But man, I just wonder, what does that do for Tennessee's win total if the defense isn't up to par and you're losing games, 41-38?
I guess, Chris, a follow-up to those last 2 questions. I mean, how do you see the East after Georgia with Florida, Billy Napier coming in, Tennessee, again, defensive questions, some unknowns at South Carolina. Kentucky brings a good bit back. How do you see the East after the Dogs?
Yeah, I think it's Tennessee. Kentucky. I just really like Will Levis. I think he is that dude. I've been making comparisons to him to Joe Burrow. I don't think he's going to have what Joe Burrow did, but I think he's going to have that kind of rise where, he's a transfer. We saw him, 1 year in the SEC, and we're like, okay, it's pretty good. And then he took that meteoric jump his senior year. I think we're going to see that with Will Levis this year at Kentucky. The big one is week 2 at Florida. If they can win that one, man, they're going to be rolling along pretty well. They get a road trip to Ole Miss, not an easy place to play, but a winnable game. Then they come home for South Carolina, Mississippi State, and then Halloween weekend, the big trip out to Knoxville to play at Tennessee. I think there's a good chance that Kentucky is undefeated going into that Halloween weekend game in Knoxville, and that'll be a big one to determine where they finish in the rank of the SEC East. But I really think Kentucky is that type of team that can do, kind of like Ole Miss was last year. Go 10-2, get to a New Year's Six bowl, and feel really good about yourselves. I don't think they'll beat Georgia, but I think Kentucky's got a real opportunity to finish number 2 in the East, and really start to improve on what Mark Stoops has built there, man. Because it feels like they've gotten better and better every year. It's just, when's he going to take that next step? What's more he can do?
And Chris, that being said, when you look at the West, I mean, I know you got Kentucky being that clear-cut number 2 in the East. Who's going to be your clear-cut number 2 in the West?
I want to say Arkansas, guys, because I like KJ Jefferson. I think he can take that next leap this year. I like Sam Pittman. He's gotten better and better every year that he's been there at Arkansas, and those fans have something to root about, man. I mean, they beat Texas last year, and they get a big, non-conference opener against Cincinnati this year. But I just look at the rest of that schedule, and it's absolutely brutal. You get the neutral field game against A&M. You get Alabama early in the season in your house, but then you got road trips to Mississippi State, Auburn. They have to play LSU and Ole Miss on the back end, and then their non-conference, they have a random, mid-October road trip out to BYU, which is a tough place to play. They get Liberty, who I know they lost Malik Willis, but that's still a pretty tough non-conference game. So I'd love to say Arkansas, but man, I just think that schedule is going to be absolutely brutal for them to weather the storm. Ole Miss has so many question marks, right? They brought in all these different pieces to the transfer portal. We don't even know who their quarterback is. Is it Jackson Dart? Is it Luke Altmaier? But look at Ole Miss's schedule. It sets up so brilliantly for them. And, if you go through it just week by week, and with no inherent bias, and you just say, is that a win or a loss? I think you can easily look at Ole Miss and go, man, that's 9, maybe 10 wins right there. And so I think Ole Miss has a real opportunity. I know everybody's expecting them to take a step back this year because of Matt Corral gone. Snoop Connor, Jerry Neely, all those guys are gone. But I think you can make a realistic expectation if these transfers come in and click. Ole Miss could finish second in the West just because of how easy their schedule is this year.
Chris Gordy joining us here on 3 and Out. And Chris, you mentioned Kentucky too. Can't beat Georgia, you don't think? And obviously everybody thinks Alabama is going to win the West. We saw that overwhelmingly play out by the media at SEC Media Days. Who in your mind is built to beat Georgia or Alabama? Obviously, people would say Texas A&M. Most people maybe pick them third in the West. Who is a team that is built to beat Bama or Georgia? Not saying they can win the division, but could beat Bama or Georgia.
Well, A&M can compete in the trenches. That's the big thing. If you're going to beat a Georgia or an Alabama, you got to be able to rough them up on the offensive and defensive line and go toe-to-toe with them. And I think A&M is going to have that this year. I think they're going to have the best defensive line they've had in the Jimbo Fisher era. I just wonder about quarterback. As we know, if you're going to pull off the big upset over those teams, you got to have a stud at quarterback. And A&M may end up having that. I mean, if it ends up being Haynes King, look, I was a big fan of Haynes going into last season. And, you know, like I mentioned earlier, dual threat guy that, you know, can take that next step in his development. And he's got some big weapons. I think it's Evan Stewart, their freshman wide receiver, was turning heads throughout the spring. I think he's poised for a big year. Anaya Smith sounds like he's put his legal stuff behind him, and, you know, he's going to be just fine. But, you know, you got to have that elite quarterback play. So I would say A&M, but, man, you telling me going into Tuscaloosa that Nick Saban's not going to want to go stick it to Jimbo after their offseason tit for tat? You know, it's just hard for me to see A&M pulling off the upset on Bama 2 years in a row, particularly with some questions at the quarterback spot. So, you know, I would say A&M can hang with them. And, you know, with Georgia in the East, again, I think Tennessee and Kentucky are their two biggest contenders. But, man, it's hard for me to see right now through the weeds, barring, you know, catastrophic injury to Bryce Young or Stetson Bennett or something like that. It's hard for me to envision neither Alabama or Georgia being there in Atlanta come December.
Chris Gordy, Locked On SEC podcast, our guest here on 3 and Out. Chris, appreciate it. Thanks much.
All right, thanks, guys. Yeah, encourage your listeners, go check out LockedOnSEC.com. Great interview with Tony Barnhart up there, Mr. College Football Today. Great insight.
Chris Gordy, appreciate him joining us here on 3 and Out. We'll come back. Much more to come. Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Sports Network, will join us as the Eagles set to start fall practice tomorrow. He'll join us top of next hour. When we come back, we found one of the copies of Uncommon Unfinished, the Vince Roop story. We'll give that away when we come back. It's 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here on 3 and Out. Kevin Thomas, Ben Troop, and BJ Bennett back with us. Good to have you back in studio, BJ. Making it 3 and Out.
Glad
once
to be
again.
back. Yep. I had to step away and deal with some health problems, and glad to be back with you guys. Missed you guys, and glad to be back spending my afternoons with you and our listeners.
Season formed already, Kevin. I mean, I know. I'm always waiting on the BJ to step in and say, "Well, that's not accurate what you just said," or "That's not." But at the end of the day, man, we happy that you're back healthy. I mean, I think holding down the fort when you was gone, obviously it wasn't the same when you wasn't here. Always great to have you back, man. I'm just waiting on when it comes to the season. We got to pick the games, and I don't feel good about it, but I'm gonna go with the squad.
That's coming right around the corner. We got a lot coming up in the final hour. Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Sports Network, will join us as the Eagles back at it starting tomorrow. David Hale, wonderful piece on the future of college football where he surveyed 200 or so admins and others around college football. We'll talk about that as well. But before we get out of here for hour 2, we have found a copy of Ben Troop's Uncommon and Unfinished. Great gift, great prize. If you would like a copy, caller number 4 right now, 912-342-7184, 912-342-7184. Get a signed copy, Uncommon, Unfinished, the Ben Troop story. Be caller number 4 right now, 912-342-7184, and you will win that copy of Uncommon and Unfinished. We are coming right back. Hour 3, right around the corner, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. to have you back. Hour 3. Kevin, BJ, and Ben. Glad to have BJ back with us here on the show. College football back, as well as teams this week all across college football start to head back to fall practice, and that's no different right there in Statesboro as Georgia Southern heads back to practice on the banks of beautiful Eagle Creek. And Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Radio Network, joins us here on 3 and Out. Colin, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you?
Hey, we're doing fantastic, and now is when the fun part begins, right? Clay Helton comes in, kind of watches the last part of last season, gets a jump on recruiting, gets to recruit, says he's going to bring in an exciting style of offense, goes through the spring, but now's when, it starts to count for real. Fall practice, the countdown to game number 1. What's kind of the temperature there in Statesboro? I know it's hot, but I mean, what's the temperature around Clay Helton here as, we are now weeks away from getting this thing started officially?
We've talked about it ever really since Clay Helton was announced as the head football coach here at Georgia Southern, that there may be more excitement around this football program than there's been in a long time. People have said there hadn't been this much excitement around this program since they restarted in the early 80s. So when you've got so much changes going on around Georgia Southern football, there's a lot of kind of uncertainty of what it's going to look like, but there's so much excitement around what Coach Helton and his staff have already done, and the fact of the staff that Coach Helton got to Statesboro. There's a lot of all-stars on this staff that you're going to see. Coach Helton even talked about it at Sunbelt Conference Media Day. A lot of folks asked him about Ryan Aplin, who was a longtime quarterback at Arkansas State, coached a little bit at Arkansas State as well. And people are already saying that Coach Aplin at one time in his career is going to be the head coach at Arkansas State. That's how much he means to the Sunbelt Conference. And so you've got people like that not only know the game of football, but this league, the geography around Southeast Georgia and the Southeast United States, where everybody knows, especially you guys down there, how much of a hotbed high school football is in the recruiting of it.
What are the big priorities for Coach Helton and this staff here in the fall? Obviously, you have spring to implement things, but a really challenging and exciting schedule upcoming. What does Coach Helton hope to accomplish here in fall camp?
I think the biggest thing is, on paper, you have filled a lot of voids, and he talked about it at Sunbelt Conference Media Day last week, that one of the biggest things that he wanted to attack this offseason was bringing in defensive backs and wide receivers. And he's done that through the transfer portal and through just high school recruiting as well. And so on paper, you have filled those voids. Now it's time to see what those voids look like when you put pads on them and they start playing Georgia Southern football. Everything that came out of spring practice for the folks that were able to get in early, everything looks great in those two areas of things. And so being able to see what it looks like as you get closer and closer to that kickoff against Morgan State.
Brian Ellis comes over from Western Kentucky. You see the record-setting offense they've had the last 3 seasons. Comes to a place like Georgia Southern. How fast can you implement an up-tempo offense that wants to throw the football around? And as you mentioned, bringing in wide receivers from the high school as well as the transfer portal. How fast should we expect this offense to get going with the season vastly approaching?
I think you're going to see it start going a lot faster than people expect. Everybody talks about trying to bring in a completely new system, which it is, completely new personnel, which it is. But just the growth that you saw from when the staff got here after the conclusion of last season all the way through spring ball, and you got to the spring game like a couple of months ago now, when you look at the growth that was there, everybody was blown away with what Georgia Southern football offensively was able to do. And it put a lot of people's minds at ease. I don't know that anybody in the football operations building mind was at ease, but from the fan, from the outside looking in, everybody was like, man, this is completely different from what we were expecting, but it's a lot better than we were expecting in most places. And so being able to see that growth really gives you some of the light into what the growth is going to be. And this staff has been really cognizant of, there's a huge learning curve. Kyle Van Treese last week at Sunbelt Media Days down in New Orleans was talking about just the terminology. Everything was different than what he was accustomed to up at Buffalo last year. But when you put a lot of football guys in the same room, eventually they're going to be talking the same language. And I don't think it's going to take too long for these folks to start reading off the same page. I think it's going to be a lot faster than people kind of anticipate.
Kyle Van Treese, Colin, I'm assuming has got it locked up as the starter at this point. Who's he getting the ball to? Who are the weapons? And how wide open, especially with J.D. King, I guess, announcing that he is no longer going to play football. How wide open are the running back and wide receiver positions on this squad?
I think running back is a little bit more, I'm not going to say narrowed down, because Georgia Southern historically has used 3, 4, even 5 deep sometimes at running back. But you've got guys like Gerald Green and Jalen White. Gerald Green, people have seen a lot more of. Jalen White kind of burst on the scene towards the tail end of last year. And then you've got guys like Amari Jones, who kind of floated between that slot, wide receiver, running back. The last offense, he is now a wide receiver on the roster. And you've got different guys like a Matthew Daniel coming in, transferring in from West Virginia. There's so many different options, and no pun intended, but so many different options in the wide receiver room that you didn't have last year if you were Georgia Southern. And so there's a lot of different weapons that you can go to. And a lot of them, like we talked about, being in that transfer portal. You look at a guy like TJ Lewis from down there in Brunswick, transferring in from Louisville, coming back home, quote unquote, to Georgia Southern, being able to do that. And so a lot of different weapons that Kyle Van Treese, and Coach Helton was pretty open about it last week at Media Day, that, yeah, Kyle Van Treese right now is the starter for Georgia Southern in the backfield, but he goes about it in a little bit different way than most, that in life you have to fight for the next 24 hours. And so that's the way this football team is going to be. There's a depth chart that'll come out every Friday, and that's what they're going to roll with for Saturday. It may not be the exact same, and there's going to be a lot of fluidity in it, especially the first couple of weeks. But you have to earn your job and keep earning your job throughout the season. It's an open competition pretty much throughout.
And everybody's intrigued and excited to see the offense. I mean, from a balance standpoint, Colin, is the goal to be 50-50? I mean, could we see a Georgia Southern offense that wants to throw the ball more than it runs the ball, or will Georgia Southern still be, I guess, run heavy, quote unquote? What's kind of the identity goal here for Georgia Southern's offense this fall?
I think you're still going to see a quote unquote, as far as numbers go, run heavy offense, but not nearly as heavy as it has been in the past. I think the new definition of run heavy would be more of a 60-40 run pass. And I think that's probably what you're going to look at this year. I think ideally you'd like to see those numbers on the passing side. If you're Coach Helton and Coach Brian Ellis, the offensive coordinator, I think you're going to see those passing numbers increase throughout the year, and going into year 2, year 3, I think you may eventually see a number where the passing outweighs the running, but that's, again, years down the road, and you've got to deal with what personnel you have. But right now, I think you're still going to be a run-first type of team and being able to try to get the hard yards on the ground. And again, it goes back to the personnel you have. When you've got guys like Gerald Green and Jalen White, guys like that in the backfield, you can't not get them the football. And so you've got to be able to do what you do with the people you have.
You look at this schedule this year. I mean, it's gonna be an uphill battle, no matter every single week. When you look at what the Sun Belt already had with the new members, Georgia Southern plays all 3 new members this year. What a realistic expectation for this team this year, especially with the Sun Belt that's super duper loaded.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bear of the schedule, and I think you're going to see that going forward with the Sun Belt Conference, like you mentioned, adding the 4 new Georgia Southern players, the 3 on the East, and so. Even a game like UAB, that's a scary, tough game for Georgia Southern. It's a UAB program. Ever since coming back from not having a program a couple of years ago, they have been one of the top teams in the Southeast, kind of fly under the radar. Brand new stadium over there in Birmingham, and Georgia Southern will have to go on the road back-to-back weeks to Nebraska, then turn around and go to Birmingham, be able to take on that UAB team. So, I mean, the non-conference, you get what you get with Morgan State. Everybody kind of knows what that is for. Then you go on the road to Nebraska, and I think that's going to be the first time you're like, okay, this is what this team really is at this point in the season. And still very early. But then first Sun Belt Conference game up, you have to go to Coastal Carolina, who has kind of held their own at the top of that conference, in the Eastern Division especially, for the last couple of years. And so at Coastal Carolina, at Georgia State, your first 2 conference games. And those are 2 games that 4 or 5 years ago, you were thinking, okay, start out with State, Coastal Carolina, that's a good way to ease into the Sun Belt Conference. That's not how it is anymore. Coastal Carolina, one of the top teams like we talked about in the league, and then Georgia State has grown dramatically over the last probably year and a half. One of the tougher teams in the league, especially playing up there at Turner Field in Atlanta. And then you have James Madison come at home. You have to go to Old Dominion. And then at some point later on in the season, a Thursday night, you head down to Acadiana to take on Louisiana. And I think you're going to figure out more of what Louisiana is in 2020 now that Billy Napier is down at Gainesville in Florida. And so what does this new Louisiana offense kind of look like?
Colin, you see this conference week in and week out throughout your travels there with Georgia Southern. I mean, does the average, I guess, kind of fan understand what's lining up with the Sun Belt each and every week in terms of competition? And do you think this is a year where maybe the Sun Belt makes a run and say, hey, I know there's a P5 and G5, but we're sitting there at the top of that G5 group?
You know, that was a big topic of conversation last week in New Orleans with Media Day, that with the addition of James Madison, Old Dominion, Marshall, and Southern Miss, you're adding 4 teams that not only fit your geographic footprint and really help the league overall in every sport, but from a football standpoint, the Sun Belt comes out smelling like roses in the latest round of realignment. And everybody knows, Lord knows what NCAA and E5, G5, what all that's going to look like in the next year or two. But for right now, Sun Belt Conference is set up really well. You saw a lot of teams trying to jump ship out of other conferences. The thing with the Sun Belt, they were looking to add teams. It wasn't teams that were looking to leave the Sun Belt Conference. It was teams that were trying to get into the Sun Belt Conference. And so being able to have that stance of it is not necessarily what you've had the last few years. And so being able to have that stance has been really good for the Sun Belt. And I think that week in and week out, you're in for really good football, no matter who's coming in or who's going where.
Colin Lacey, Georgia Southern Radio Network, joining us here on 3 and Out. Eagles back at it tomorrow afternoon there in Statesboro for fall practice. Colin, appreciate the time. Thanks so much.
Thank you, guys.
And the Clay Helton era really jumps back into the fold starting on the fall practice. To me, that's when it starts getting real. BJ, Ben, you can say, hey, he was there late in the season, got to recruit, got to go through spring practice. Now that the actual countdown to the season's on, I think now you're starting to see, okay, it's Clay Helton coming from Southern Cal, tough Sun Belt Conference. What can you do in year number 1? Kyle Vantrease, you've utilized the transfer portal a lot. Is this a team that could surprise given better coaching? Maybe some transfers that come right in and play right away? Is this a team that maybe surprises some folks in 2021?
Well, I think
2022.
I think every week in the Sun Belt, I think Colin's exactly right. This conference is really good, and that includes Georgia Southern, and you're going to see that play itself out throughout non-conference matchups this fall, where you're going to see another Sun Belt team beat not only big-time group of 5 teams, but beat a couple of Power 5 teams. It's going to happen. The Sun Belt is one of the premier conferences in college football. And some have argued at times it's been better than a couple, maybe 1 or 2 of the Power 5 conferences. And you think about, 10 conferences, I think you're right there at 5, 6. You're in that range. You've moved up where you've been with some of the additions, with the development of some of your programs. But Ben, I wanted to ask you this, and maybe we need to get into it next segment. But when you have fall camp year 1 new staff, I know you did that with Ron Zook replacing Steve Spurrier. How do you balance the continued installation of spring with getting ready for the start of the season when you have a new staff in fall camp?
You want to continue to make an impression. I think sometimes when you look at being in college already, every single day in football is an audition. I like the fact that Coach Helton's making sure these players know, do not get comfortable. I mean, you have to fight against getting comfortable in college, no matter how good of a player that you are. But you want to be able to show the new members what they're coming into. You don't want Old Dominion and James Madison and Southern Miss Company coming in, because the last thing you want is to stop. Like, look, I already know I got to compete with Coastal. I already know I got to compete with App. I already know, what Louisiana does and Georgia State does. I want to be showing the new members, hey, while we appreciate you guys adding, you guys are going to have to earn your keep too. Because if not, those teams not coming in saying, hey, man, we look forward to being in the Sun Belt. We're trying to host a Sun Belt championship. But I want to continue to build trust with my coaching staff, my head coach in particular, because once you realize what college football is, the pressures of college football are felt by the head coach, and he demands that demand that he puts on you as a player is what you got to be able to live up to day in and day out, and the best can do it. And I'm not saying you're not one of the best, but this is a new offense. Coach Brian Ellis is coming over. They're going to throw the football. And it's weird. Look, it's weird watching Georgia Tech not run the triple. I get it. It's weird watching Georgia Southern not run the option. It's weird. So to get the fan base used to what it's going to be, you're going to have to look good doing it. Can't be no 17 to 20 games, put up points. And the easiest way to get players in is to show them the product on the field. I went and got one of the best offensive coordinators in college football when you look at what they did the last 3 years. BJ, I think we got to go to didn't Georgia State play like Western Kentucky at a bowl game that we went to down there? So we've seen what that offense can do, but now, you finna get Kevin, is the air raid potentially coming to Statesboro? We will see. But Coach Helton, one thing he's gonna know real quick, there are no mulligans anymore. Ain't no, we're gonna give him a year. No, you better come out firing, and you got to go to Nebraska. We're gonna learn a lot about them boys week 2.
We've got more to come here. It is 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Online, ESPNCoastal.com. You can get us streaming in the ESPN app. Also, on your phone, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. Find the show. You can watch us each and every day. Go to ESPN Coastal on YouTube, and you can see the show, catch what you missed, catch past shows out there as well. We're coming back with more 3 and Out, Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back here on 3 and Out. We'll check in with David Hale's Future of College Football survey. A lot of great stuff about where people inside the sport feel this thing is headed, and a lot of interesting insight in regards to that as well. So we'll get to that coming up in just a little bit, but let's go to the phones. 912-342-7184. We got our good buddy AC on the line. AC, what's up?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much for taking my call. How you guys doing?
And we're doing good.
Hey, I have a question for you guys, and I have a comment about Ric Flair that's bothering me, so I have to let you guys know. So the question is, for baseball, for MLB, can you, the Atlanta Braves, they have to make any major trade move before the trade deadline to compete for a possible back-to-back championship? So the question is, do they have to add one or two superstars to get to the next level like last season? And you guys were talking about, the funny thing is, you guys giving all the credit to Steve Austin, Ric Flair. There's one name left out that's disrespectful. Let's forget about Brock Lesnar. Come on, guys. He conquered WWE. He conquered UFC. I think he should be at number one. If he cannot be at number one, sorry, guys. I don't know what you're smoking today. I'll see you tomorrow.
All right, hey, thank you for the call, AC. I'm not smoking anything. Pretty sure Brock Lesnar might have been. You don't get that big just because you like to lift weights. But anyway, to put Brock Lesnar in the same category,
That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous,
absurd.
AC. That's ridiculous.
Brock Lesnar was in the WWE for like 10 minutes, relatively speaking.
He was so good at WWF, he went to UFC.
I'm not discounting what he did.
Yeah.
But when you're talking all time, you're not
Come on-
putting him in
come
the
on
same
now.
category. Undertaker,
Come on
Steve
now.
Austin, Ric Flair. You're not doing it.
I'm not calling him a Johnny Come Lately. That's exactly what I'm calling him. Stop with the nonsense.
Yeah, no. That's a bad take, AC.
We love you, but come on,
yeah,
AC.
that's
You're
that's
reaching.
terrible. That's terrible.
But BJ, this is what you don't know about AC. He told Kevin, that's who his favorite team was. He says, "quote I'm a front runner."
He
said,
I had to hang up on him because I was like,
Okay.
He gave it a buck. He said, "Whoever win it, that's who I'm going with."
What about his Braves question there, Kevin?
no, you don't have to sign a superstar. And in fact, they won't sign a superstar because superstars at this point do what? They cost money. And I'm not saying the Braves won't spend any, but if you're talking about when you say superstar, what are you talking about? Like Juan Soto? That's not going to happen.
Well, Shohei Ohtani?
Shohei Ohtani? That's not going to happen. I mean, and the Angels came out and said, we're not trading Shohei before the deadline, so forget about that. But I think what you would have to give up to land a player of that caliber, why? You have good players on your team. Michael Harris, budding superstar. Ronald Acuna, not playing tremendously well. I think is a superstar. Matt Olson's played well. Austin Riley's having an MVP season. You got I think the best defensive shortstop in the league going right now, and you're going to get Ozzie Albies back. You have a great lineup as it is. Now, left field's a little bit of an albatross, so I think you need to find a piece to fill in out there because Marcell Ozuna doesn't need to be out there with a glove on. He might be able to go out there pregame, wave at the fans, but if he comes out of the dugout with a glove on his hand, I'll be like Jimbo Fisher talking to Jameis Winston warming up there in Tallahassee before the game he's suspended for. I'll be like, dude, what are you doing? Go get back in the dugout and sit down and do not come out unless you are ready to hit.
Yes.
The end. And if they trade Marcell Ozuna, I wouldn't be upset about it. But anyway, no, I don't think they're going to get a superstar. Kirby Yates set to come back and help out in the bullpen.
And that's my only thing is right. If you were to say, where could you use an addition? You might say the back end of the bullpen simply because the injury issues with Kenley Jansen we've talked about. Will Smith has been, kind of iffy. And you're getting that without having to make a move, Ben, right? So
I think kind of iffy and Will Smith is being generous right now.
So I think if Kirby Yates, and I know Fred Owen said he didn't have a great outing last night, minor league wise, but I think Kirby Yates will be back. I mean, Ben, what do you think? Maybe left field, but I don't think you have to do a lot. I really don't.
Definitely left field. Marcell Ozuna for what he provides. I mean, he definitely provides some pop, but it's the thing.
What do you have to give up?
I don't think. Well, Kevin, BJ, I don't think
you have Rosario.
Yeah, but this is the thing too, though, right? Rosario could be a need filler, but the thing about it, it's just so wide open, so big of a need out there in left field. I mean, you're gonna get Ozzie back. Your starting pitching has been there. I just think that you ride this thing out. You can always add a starting pitcher. You can never have enough starting pitching. You talk about adding somebody in the back end of your bullpen. But the greatest thing is you don't have to panic. You are doing what you're doing without Ronald Acuna Jr. playing at his best. If he starts playing better, they may sure up because last time I checked, the team with the most points wins, and the Braves are finding a way to get that done more often than not. But Marcell, to call you a liability is being generous. Marcell he is awful in the left field. You're going to have to be able to sure that up because BJ, all of a sudden all the balls are going to the left field. Everybody want to hit to the left field all of a sudden when you got a liability out there. Alex Anthopoulos, we trust you, sir. You have earned the trust of not just Kevin Thomas and being true, but BJ Bennett said he's going to send you I'm sorry card, he put it in the mail.
Well, why wouldn't you trust? Why wouldn't you trust Alex Anthopoulos?
Why did he not win GM of the year last year? Because they be hating.
Well, maybe he'll win it this year. Who knows? We've got more to come. Here it is, 3 and Out, all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Good to have you back, Kevin, Ben, and BJ. All three of us in the same place at the same time on the show. Good to have BJ back here on 3 and Out. And again, college football starting to wind up. The NFL training camps have been open all over the place. Wish we had good news to report from Falcons camp. Ben showed me the first 2 plays of Falcons camp, a sack, or what would have been a sack, and then Ben showed me a highlight of Drake London getting no separation.
And that was not against AJ Terrell, by the way. So
there's your Falcons camp.
I'm just saying, listen, I'm just telling you, our Orlando led better report is going to happen sometime this week. And I'm going to say, Orlando, yeah. Talk to me if it's just you and me and nobody's listening. Keep it a buck with me. I want to know what's going on.
Well, the video highlights you were showing me today didn't make me feel better. That's all I'll say.
I mean,
That's
Kevin, what did Orlando tell us about Drake London? Hey, he can run the go route. They just haven't thrown it to him yet.
It was telling me about the offensive line depth chart, and
that was special. It's unique.
Who did Orlando tell us they quote got to get him out of there? Like, just can't let him play football.
I'm trying.
It was bad.
I'm trying to think. Look, apparently Jags camp, BJ's. We haven't had a chance to feel all the Jag. Apparently Trevor Lawrence over the weekend couldn't hit anybody, and today everybody's catching passes. So there you go. There's
Travis Etienne's looking really, really fast.
Well, you know that. I mean, is that what?
Hold on
a second. Who's been telling you about Travis Etienne for like a decade now?
But who you do it against has to matter, right? I mean, ain't nobody on that defense really scaring nobody. I'm just saying, BJ. They said Clavon Chase not out there talking trash.
The number 1 overall pick.
Trevon Walker.
All the money you spent on
I'm rooting for Trevon. I'm rooting for Trevon
the leading
Walker.
tackler in the NFL.
I can't even say his name, Kevin. I can't even say his name.
Olakun. You're talking about Josh Allen?
No. Josh Allen is legit.
No, Ben is you weren't. Ben is
Griffin
saying that Trayvon Walker is will believe it when he sees it.
Yeah, I got to see it because BJ once again name me a time. This is just being honest that a guy, no conference teams, no All-American teams, 6.5 sacks, won out of championship. No, listen, not honorable mention, all SEC, no 1 overall pick. That's never happened before. I'm not saying he can't start a trend.
The best player on his defense.
Part of one of the best defenses in the history of college football.
I am not taking away from that, though. I am not taking away from that. But this is the thing. You have 6.5 sacks on one of the best defenses we've ever seen, probably going to rank up there at the top 2 or 3 of all time, and you win number 1 over. I'm not mad at him.
You got Campbell from Georgia in a second. I'm telling you, the defense is going to be better.
All I'm saying is, at the end of the day, right? When y'all went to the AFC Championship game, what Miles Jack, Jalen,
I'm sorry, it's not that team. Like, yes, I understand it's not the Jaguars team that made the AFC Championship game.
The Jaguars outside of Trevor Lawrence, the last 6 years in the draft, Tavon Bryan, Dante Fowler, Josh Allen, Chason, Walker. Who's left? We got Walker. He's going to be left.
We talk about some of the Christian Kirk, Evan Ingram,
whoa.
Zay Jones.
Hold on. We talking about the defense. You want to go to the offense? We could do it now.
I'm just saying, that's on you.
Is Laviska Shenault still your favorite Jag right now?
I got to get him the ball.
All right.
Just get him the ball.
I'm just saying.
This is going to be fun.
Following
this all season long with
it's gonna be fun. They're gonna be exciting to watch.
Yeah, Doug Peterson, I think, makes him more of
a
watch than.
I mean, look,
stable environment.
An upgrade, stabilization,
coaching. A real working environment.
There's guys. They've
been talking trash.
There are guys tearing ACLs to get to a mic talking about how bad
they talking trash about
Urban.
Oh, Urban.
You got Brandon Sheriff, an All-Pro, coming in along the offensive line.
Listen. I am rooting for the Jags. I'm not rooting for the Jags 2 Sundays out the year. You know what? What 2 Sundays those are. But outside of that, man, I'm rooting for them boys. I know what it's like when your average age is like 23, 24. That can get a little rough. But James Robinson, BJ back out there, put some respect on his name.
Yeah, underrated.
But we'll see. Christian Kirk being a headliner, I got to see.
A lot of camp to get to there with Jacksonville. They're in the Hall of Fame game this week.
They are,
if I'm not mistaken. So we got that to look forward to as well. But a lot of NFL news out there today. None bigger, Ben and BJ, than Deshaun Watson, who ends up, it could still be appealed, but 6 games is all that he gets. I say all he gets because it seems like popular sentiment is, I don't understand what the NFL is doing. Now, the Players Association said we want 0. NFL claims they wanted a whole year. Third party, Judge, she says 6 games. And Ben has seen an awful lot of players and ex-players on social media today going, wait a minute, I got 12 games for marijuana. Calvin Ridley's got at least a year. It'd probably only be a year, but the way the suspension reads, it's at least a year for gambling. Now, Calvin Ridley did it, right? Because, Ben, we made the joke. He goes down to Florida, signs up on a gambling site as probably, hey, my username's Calvin Ridley. Okay, probably not smart to do that. But he gets at least a year. Now, Deshaun Watson, criminally in a criminal court, nothing on the record, right? Not going, no jail time, was not, nothing. Civil cases, civilly, he has settled with 20 women. With 20. There's still others out there, but civilly, he has reached settlement with 20 women. Now, as we said earlier in the show, if you settle with one, okay, I might be a little more understanding if you say, listen, it's my word versus her word. If this thing goes to court, it's going to be long. It's going to be drawn out. It's going to be a lot of stuff that I don't want to go through publicly. My legal team said it's worth it to reach a settlement, and let's put this behind us. Okay, that's one. There's 20 of them. So you get a year for marijuana. I think we talked about it. Darren Waller got a year for substance. Calvin Ridley got a year for gambling. We've seen guys get 6 to 8 games for PEDs at various times. And you get 6 with 20 settlements out there. Again, that does not mean you are guilty, but that means you are a lot closer to a campfire than you are a matchstick, right? I mean, I'm just saying, as people read that, and there's a lot of people, Ben, that are, I think, upset that it's only 6. And as Christian said, there's already people saying, oh, only 6 coming back. Oh man, that's looks like Browns Ravens. Let's get going. I think that is what people who are upset by this are saying. He's like, look, there's 20 women out there you settle with, and there's more. You felt enough about this decision to say, all right, Deshaun, you cannot get caught getting a massage from anybody else other than a team, I guess, physical therapist or a massage therapist, and that's it. Same way we gave all the crap last week to Kyler Murray. Why do you feel the need to put a homework clause in there? Okay, if you're doing the work, we're not watch 4 hours of film in there. Deshaun, if you don't have a problem, why are you getting 6 games with a caveat that you can't go to a massage parlor unless the team masseuse does it? All right, and you're going to get 6 games? A lot of people are saying, I don't get it, NFL. Are we just making this up as we go along when it comes to punishment?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And for those people that want to do all these things about trying to, take up for Deshaun Watson, everybody's not judged the same way. You're judged based off the situation that you carry. If you are Deshaun Watson, I am one of the top 32 quarterbacks on the planet. I am a professional athlete. I did not conduct myself. I don't know what Deshaun Watson, so I can't speak in absolute of what he did. But he did something because he gave 20 women money. And like you say, Kevin, settlement doesn't mean I'm guilty. It doesn't mean I'm innocent either. It means something was done in order to give these women settlements to never see from them and hear from them again. They do a third party, Judge Sue Robinson, right? They're going to look through all this thing and based off her, based off what she saw, the evidence, the lack thereof, she made a ruling. She's not wrong in her ruling. The NFL is using a third party to keep themselves away from it. Yes, the NFL can come out and say, "Oh, we wanted a year." Man, that's window dressing. You can say whatever you wanted. They've already made a ruling, and Roger Goodell makes this life easier. Roger Goodell wants to be the face of the NFL. I don't want to be the disciplinarian. I don't want to be the judge and jury. That's just what the CPA gave me. Now, people say, "Well, he gets a chance to go out there." They got till Thursday to rule. It's probably gonna happen in the midnight hour of Thursday. Watch, and they're gonna say, "Here's what I don't think he's gonna get more games." But this is the problem about this whole thing. Either when it comes to women in the NFL, the NFL has a problem. It has a problem. Now, when it's domestic violence, okay, notable. You're supposed to, whatever happens to that guy. we just forget about what happened in Washington. All that stuff that happened with them goes away. Why? Because it's the owner. Came to do nothing, Dan Snyder. When it comes to a guy like Deshaun Watson, Deshaun Watson's one of the faces of the National Football League. But we got to separate talent from behavior. We can't do it. He is talented. And people say, there's no way he would do that. Why? Because he makes a bunch of money? He's a normal person before he's anything. I don't know what Deshaun Watson did, but at the end of the day, it is a bad look. But Kevin, you said it in the first hour. As soon as he runs out there, it goes away. As soon as this news cycle goes away, it goes away. Now, you're going to have a couple of people that are going to say different things. As soon as they go touchdown, Brown, it goes away. And that's what the NFL knows. Right now, it's a 17-game season. Most teams are not, records are not decided in 6 games. You still got 11 games left and a bye week.
So it'll be a big talking point.
It will be when he comes back.
But that week he comes back.
Absolutely.
And if he plays well, the next week it'll be like, oh, well, I think that doesn't even become a talking point anymore.
But it's a bad look. It's a really bad look, and it's hard to understand. And this is straight from the news release on ESPN or story by Jake Trotter, just to provide the backdrop again. Watson has been accused of sexual assault and inappropriate conduct during massage sessions and civil lawsuits filed by 25 women. And as you said, I guess most of those have been settled. There's, clearly still some things yet to be determined there, but 6 games, given all that's gone on, given, the information that's been put out there, obviously, which is very concerning. The allegations, very, very concerning. 6 games is hard to understand. I mean, and especially when you compare it to, you mentioned the Ridley thing. And I think for Calvin Ridley, and I think we all agreed, just talking about that independently, right? When that first came out, like, wait a second, a guy who's not playing on a team got a year-long plus potential suspension for betting on a game. And you look at this and it's 6 games, and it's really hard to understand. And it's really not a good look. And like you guys have said, there have already been, conversations, social media, whatever, fans going, okay, so if we go 4-2 here and, move forward here, you're already talking about it in football terms. And this is very serious. This is, what you're talking about here is a potentially very bad thing, given, the allegations and given the conversations and, what may or may not have happened. Like you said, Ben, we don't know, but to review all this, and not only is it a 6-game suspension, just that, but there's no fine, right? He'll get fined. So every time you suspend, they find you the game checks. But this is the thing. But there's no additional fine. There's no additional
This is
fine.
also the lowest amount he's going to be paid over the life of that contract.
And for those people thinking, hey man, well, maybe they're doing that because he was suspended in 2021. No, he wasn't suspended in 2021. He sat out. What does that mean? That means he got paid. So he got paid in 2021.
It's as though he was injured.
Yes, right? he got his full salary in 2021. And I don't know what the dollar amount was to the 20 women, but he's gonna get fined a little bit over $300,000. His salary in 2022 is only $1 million. So that $230 million doesn't even start till 2023. So look at all these things that the Browns are doing to take care of Deshaun Watson. So the Houston Texans still paid him to not be a distraction.
Right?
He paid 20 women settlements, and he's going to get every cent of that $230 million. So in a sense, he's not losing anything. And this is what people ain't really saying. What if Deshaun Watson comes back week 7, balls out, the Browns make the playoffs? People going to say, oh, because once again, we have a hard time believing that, quote, celebrities do crazy stuff. No, they do crazy things. I'm just saying, if my talent is up here and my behavior is down there, I got to pick a side. Cleveland made their decision. Cleveland signed Deshaun Watson before Lamar Jackson signed, before Kyler Murray signed, right? They $230 million. That's based off what we think he could do on a team that doesn't even have a winning record or winning at all. So we'll see.
But I mean, just given the seriousness, obviously unacceptable allegations, and you're talking about 6 games and no additional fine is not a good look, and it's really hard to understand.
You're right. And again, Ben, we got about a minute. Where do you kind of come down on Cleveland making a move on this before this was all even said and done. Because, like you said, they knew this was happening because the contract was. I mean, and I know people say, "Oh, agents do this all the time, backload contracts." Oh, I mean, okay. So out of 200 million, the guy who is only going to take $1 million in the first year. That's not backloading. That is pre-planned. Like Deshaun Watson taking $1 million in year one. No, you're getting 220 million. They might say, "Why don't you take 10 or 15?" I'm gonna say take one. I think it's a bad look for Cleveland as well.
If you think that, listen, for all of you who ever want to know who run the National Football League, I give you quarterbacks. You don't believe me? Why can't you hit quarterbacks high anymore? Peyton Manning. Why can't you hit them low? Tom Brady. Who runs the NFL? The top 10 best quarterbacks in the country. You don't believe me? What? Deshaun Watson is the top 10 quarterback who hasn't played in a year, and he got more guaranteed money than players that did, because his talent supersedes super duper bad behavior and decision making. But at the end of the day, it's a bottom line business. The bottom line, he can help sell tickets, he can help sell jerseys, he can help get people to the TV screen, and he's good for business.
We've got more to come here. It is 3 and Out on the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. Hit us up on Twitter at Pigskin Radio. Good to have you back here, 3 and Out on this Monday. Braves off tonight. They have made a move. They get Ehire Adrianza coming back over from the Washington Nationals in exchange for an outfielder named Harris. No, not that one. Don't freak out. It was Trey Harris. Still a pretty good young outfielder, but not of the same caliber as one Michael Harris. So Ehire Adrianza going to come back. He'll be able to play second base, outfield if need be, to try to shore up. Not hitting the best with the Nationals, I think under 200, but better than what I guess they felt about with anybody else they had as an option.
And has had success with the Braves before.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So, and they DFA'd Robinson Cano. So that happening. No Braves tonight. 2 games with the Phillies, and then the big 5 games in 4 days against the New York Mets upcoming. Trade deadline coming up tomorrow. We'll see if the Braves pull anything off in regards to that after what they've done today. Also going to have Rich Styles talking some golf with him, and Robbie Ross going to join us tomorrow, Wednesday. Ben sits down with Quincy Carter for Troop Talk, and Sean Elliott, Georgia State, will join us, and we'll talk some college football about his program coming up there on Wednesday. If you missed, go ahead.
I was just say Robbie going to join us tomorrow. Georgia Southern starts spring practice tomorrow.
So if you missed any of the show, ESPNCoastal.com, you can go Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or go to our web, our page on YouTube, ESPN Coastal on YouTube, and you can catch the show there as well. This has been 3 and Out all across the Southern Pigskin Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow. Have a great day.